You ever have one of those moments where something small, almost accidental, completely shatters your sense of reality? That's how it started for me. Not with a fight. Not with a dramatic confession or some anonymous tip. Just a pair of cufflinks in the trunk of my girlfriend's car. I wasn't snooping. I want that to be clear. I wasn't some paranoid boyfriend digging through her stuff. I was just trying to be helpful. Rachel called me that morning to say her battery was acting up again. She was stressed, already late for work, so I told her I'd swing by and check it out before I went into the office. I figured I'd test the voltage, maybe swap batteries if I had time. Easy. I met her in the lot behind her apartment complex, kissed her cheek like any normal Thursday, and popped her trunk to grab the jumper cables. And that's when I saw the box. It was tucked behind a gym bag, partly hidden under a crumpled jacket. The box was sleek, matte black with a gold-embossed logo across the top. Not something you pick up at a mall kiosk. High-end. I reached for it, thinking maybe she bought me a gift. Our anniversary was only a few weeks away. For a second, I felt touched. But when I opened it, my stomach turned. Men's cufflinks. Heavy. Silver. Clearly expensive. And engraved on the underside in clean, sharp letters, A.J. Those aren't my initials. I stood there for a few seconds longer than I should have, trying to come up with an innocent explanation. Maybe it was a late Father's Day gift for her dad? Or a weird monogram mistake. But no, Rachel's dad's name is Greg, and she wouldn't spend this kind of money on a mistake. Before I could think of what to say, she came around to the back of the car, smiling like nothing was wrong. "Did you find the cables?" she asked, reaching for her phone again. I didn't answer right away. I just held up the box and tilted my head slightly. "Who's A.J.?" Her eyes flicked from the box to my face, and for the tiniest beat, something shifted in her expression. Not panic, not guilt, just calculation, like she was rapidly flipping through her internal Rolodex for a story. Then she laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh my God," she said, waving it off. "That's for my boss, Alex Jameson. His assistant forgot to order his retirement gift, so I stepped in and did it for her." She reached out casually, took the box from my hand, and set it on the back seat like it was no big deal. Then she said, "The assistant was freaking out. It's a big deal. He's been with the company for 20 years. I had it gift wrapped at the hotel. Looked better than anything I could throw together last minute." And just like that, it was a professional favor. But then I spotted something else. Half tucked under her tote bag was a parking ticket. Not just any ticket. A receipt from Cliffview Hotel in Lag**Na Beach. Dated for the same morning. Checkout time: 7:22 a.m. "You were at Cliffview?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She blinked again. "Yeah, that's where the event was." "What event?" She paused, then smiled. "The retirement dinner. We rented out one of the meeting spaces. I stayed after to help clean up and ended up crashing in one of the comped rooms. It was late, safer than driving home tired." I stared at her, trying to find a crack in the story. It sounded rehearsed, too polished, like she'd practiced it in the mirror. "Funny," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "You told me yesterday you worked late and crashed at Kim's place." For a split second, she froze. Then she shrugged. "Right, I forgot. Kim was there too. A bunch of us ended up sharing a room. God. Everything this week is blending together. You know how hectic it's been." She was already closing the trunk. Moving on. Talking about traffic on the 405 and how she hadn't had coffee yet. Like nothing had happened. Like I was being weird for even asking. I didn't argue. I didn't call her out. I just nodded, kissed her cheek again, and left. But the gears in my head were already spinning. Later that night, when she got home, she went straight to the hallway closet and shoved the box deep behind a pile of scarves and old coats. I watched her do it, and she didn't even flinch. We ate dinner in silence. She scrolled her phone, told me about a new intern who didn't know how to use Excel, complained about budget cuts and broken printers. Her voice was steady. Her mood, perfectly normal. Too normal. She mentioned being swamped with end-of-quarter projections. Said she might have to work late again Friday, maybe even Saturday, and all I could think about was the receipt that pinged her phone earlier. One she probably forgot was visible on the lock screen. It was from Cliffview again. Gift service. Romantic wrap add-on $18. Romantic. That word stuck with me. Not corporate. Not celebration. Not professional. Romantic. She never even tried to hide it. She just redirected the conversation until I felt like I was the crazy one. Until I was the suspicious boyfriend reading too much into a gift box and a hotel ticket. But deep down I knew something wasn't right. The Rachel I knew, who used to vent about long meetings and bring me pastries from her lunch runs, wasn't this composed. She was passionate, a little chaotic, always bad at lying. Now, she was calm, in control, scripted almost. I didn't say anything that night. I didn't accuse her. But when I laid down next to her in bed and watched her drift off to sleep like nothing was wrong, I felt a kind of cold I've never felt before. Not anger, not sadness, just distance. Like I was watching the slow fade out of something I hadn't realized was ending. I stared at the ceiling, my thoughts racing. Was I overreacting? Reading too much into a box? A receipt? A story that didn't quite line up? Or had something already broken, and I was just now catching up to it? I didn't know yet, but something told me this wasn't the first lie. Just the first one I couldn't explain away. And that, more than anything, scared the hell out of me. Once the cufflinks showed up, I couldn't unsee the rest. Before that, I'll admit, I'd brushed off the weird stuff. Told myself I was being dramatic. That we were just going through a phase. That Rachel was stressed. Tired. Distracted. Everyone has rough weeks, right? You don't throw up red flags every time your partner comes home quiet or forgets to say goodnight. But after that morning in the parking lot, after the corporate gift explanation and the Cliffview receipt, everything started coming into focus like a cracked windshield slowly spidering outward. Not a single break, not one big betrayal. Just fractures. Everywhere. I started remembering all the things I'd pushed aside. Like her phone. That used to be out on the counter all the time. On the coffee table. Face up. Glowing when texts came through. Now it was always face down. Or in her back pocket. Or charging in the bedroom with the door shut. Passwords started changing, too. Little by little. First it was her email. Then her lock screen. She used to joke that I knew all her passcodes better than she did. Then one day, when I tried to turn down a call while her phone was buzzing during dinner, it asked for a 6-digit PIN. I asked her about it. Casually, not accusatory. And she just said, "Work's cracking down on security. IT makes us update every few weeks now." Sounded legit. Until I noticed she'd downloaded 2 new messaging apps I'd never seen before. Not WhatsApp, not Signal, some off-brand ones I had to Google. When I asked what they were for, she said, "Oh, just testing them for work. The team's looking for better internal tools." She deleted one right in front of me, smiled like I'd caught her doing something boring. And then there were the girls' nights. First, I was happy she was going out more. For the first couple years of our relationship, she'd always talked about how she missed her social life, how she felt isolated after moving to my city. I encouraged her to reconnect, grab drinks, see people. But suddenly these nights started happening more often, then weekly, then multiple nights a week. And the weirdest part? No names. I'd ask, "Who are you going with?" And she'd just say, "The girls." That's it. No Sarah and Mia. No Becca from the office. Just vague. I'd say something like, "Cool. Where are you guys going?" And she'd toss out a neighborhood. Never a place. Downtown, by the pier, some new place in Costa Mesa. It was always non-committal, fluid, hard to pin down. Like she was leaving just enough detail to make it believable, but not enough to follow. And then one night she came home, from Pilates. Hair down, makeup flawless, smelling like some perfume I'd never noticed before. She claimed the studio added a eucalyptus spray to the bathrooms. I'm not joking. Eucalyptus. I remember standing in the kitchen, watching her pull leftovers from the fridge like nothing was off. She still had on earrings. Her eyeliner was fresh. She looked better than when she left. I opened my mouth to say something, but then I saw the way she was smiling. Too wide, too busy, and I froze. That's when it clicked. I'd seen this version of her before. Not the real Rachel. The performance. I stopped asking questions that night, but I started paying closer attention. That's when the real picture started forming. I noticed the Uber receipts first. Random ones, always from parts of town she never went to. Not near work, not near the gym, and not near any of our friends. Once I asked what she was doing in Del Mar and she shrugged. We had a client lunch there, but the timestamp said 10:47 p.m. I double-checked the calendar on our shared app. No work event logged. Then there were the geotags. Once in a while she'd post a picture to her story, coffee, ocean view, random overhead food *T. Usually harmless. But sometimes the background wouldn't match what she told me. Like she'd say she was at a team happy hour in Carlsbad, but her story would tag her near Dana Point, an hour south. I brought it up once. Lightly. Didn't you say you were in Carlsbad? She blinked, then laughed. Oh, right. We changed venues last minute. Classic Jenna move. Jenna, her boss, always the scapegoat. If anything in her life went sideways, Jenna did it. Jenna forgot. Jenna double-booked. Jenna dragged her out. After a while, Jenna felt more like a smokescreen than a person. Another night, I found a receipt for a wine tasting. 2 people. Midweek. Not far from the coast. It was stuffed into her glove box, folded behind an old registration slip. I opened it, scanned the line items. 1 bottle of white, 1 of red. A charcuterie plate for 2. When I asked about it, again, not accusing, just curious, she said, "Oh, I took a client. It's part of the new account courting. Gotta keep them happy." Thing is, Rachel works in logistics. Not sales. Not marketing. Logistics. It didn't make sense, but I didn't push. Then came the hotels. I wish I was exaggerating. I really do. They started small charges on our joint credit card for random hotels along the coast. 1 in Oceanside. 1 in Newport. Another in San Clemente. At first, I chalked it up to work travel. She'd done overnight trips before. But the thing that got me was the way the bills were always just 1 night. Never multiple. Never during conference season. And always weekdays. I called one of the hotels once. Said I'd lost a receipt and needed to know who the room was booked under. The woman on the line was polite but firm. "That's confidential," she said. I thanked her, hung up, and sat there staring at the wall for almost an hour. My mind kept flashing back to all the nights she'd said she was staying late at the office or working from Kim's. Every excuse started replaying like background noise. There were little things, too. Changes in her mood after she came home. How she'd start humming in the kitchen, smiling to herself while cooking like she'd just come from some spa. How she started going to the bathroom with her phone, staying in there for 20-30 minutes at a time, then coming out with that nothing happened energy, like she was trying to erase whatever she'd just been feeling. I once passed by the door and heard a quiet ping. Not iMessage. Some other app. And then I remembered something else. Months ago, we went to a wedding, and one of her coworkers, Jordan I think, was drunk and chatty. At one point, he leaned over and said, "You're lucky, man. Rachel could have anyone in the office." I laughed it off. Didn't think much of it. Now I couldn't stop thinking about it. By then, my head was swimming. I didn't have proof. Not yet. But I had 100 little things that didn't add up. 100 tiny lies that, when you stacked them together, made a mosaic of betrayal. And suddenly, I was remembering every moment I let slide. Every time I chose to believe her instead of my gut. I started doubting everything. Not just her. Me. Was I blind? Naive? Too trusting? Was I so in love with the idea of Rachel, the version of her I thought I knew, that I couldn't see who she was becoming right in front of me? The worst part wasn't the suspicion. It was the waiting, the in-between, that space where you don't know for sure, but you know enough to feel the truth lurking just beneath the surface. Waiting to be confirmed. Waiting to drag you under. I think a part of me was still hoping I was wrong. Even after everything, the receipts, the hotel charges, the lies too slick to be spontaneous, I wanted to be wrong. I wanted it to be a misunderstanding. Some tangled mess of coincidences and stress and timing. That maybe I'd been too paranoid. That I'd built a conspiracy out of shadows and miscommunications. But I wasn't wrong. And I'll never forget the exact moment that hope died for good. It was a Thursday. One of those long, washed-out Southern California evenings where the sky glows orange too early and everything feels like it's slowing down. Rachel had texted me in the late afternoon. "Hey, big client thing tonight. We're hosting at Alex's house. Full team expected. Might crash there. Don't wait up, red heart." That was the first thing that set me off. Don't wait up. That wasn't her tone. Not usually. She never used to say stuff like that. If she had to stay overnight, she'd at least call. Talk it out. Make it sound like she hated the idea. But this was clean. Comfortable. Too casual. Her boss, Alex Jameson, lived up on the northern hills of San Diego County, fancy place. She'd mentioned him a dozen times, always in a neutral tone. Alex is demanding, or Alex doesn't respond to emails. Never anything emotional. I didn't know what he looked like. Didn't know if he was married or single. I didn't even know how old he was. But I had a hunch. And this time I didn't wait at home. I got in my car and started driving. I didn't tell her. Didn't ask for the address. Didn't ask who was attending. I just started with her office directory, checked LinkedIn, found his full name, looked up the property records. I found the house in under 10 minutes. A sprawling modern mansion tucked behind high shrubs, just off a winding road that only doctors, lawyers, or tech startup millionaires could afford. The kind of house where people disappear into shadows and no one asks questions. By the time I got there, the sun was low. Streetlights were just kicking on. There were no cars out front. Just a luxury SUV in the driveway and Rachel's white Camry parked behind it. The kind of silence that didn't match a corporate party. I pulled over a few houses down and K** led my headlights. I sat there, heart racing, wondering what the hell I was doing. What if I was wrong? What if she was inside with a room full of coworkers and I was just being a psycho with a car and too much time? But my gut was screaming. So I got out. I didn't go to the front door. I didn't knock. I didn't cause a scene. I circled the block, slipping through the side trail that wrapped around the backyards. That neighborhood wasn't gated, just rich and private. No fences, just tall bushes, layered hedges, enough cover to stay out of view. From the side of the hill, I had a clear view of the house's back windows, floor-to-ceiling glass that looked out over the canyon. The lights inside were still on, warm and golden, like something out of a catalog. No movement, no crowd, no music, no team dinner, just two people sitting on a couch in the living room. Rachel and a man. He was older than her. Broad shoulders, close-cut silver hair, dressed like he hadn't changed out of his work clothes but had loosened everything just enough to be comfortable. His jacket was draped on the armrest. His shirt was open at the collar. She was beside him, barefoot, legs folded underneath her, sipping from a wine glass. The only plates on the coffee table were for two. Leftovers, maybe. Cheese, crackers, strawberries. Nothing professional about it. I stood there, still, hidden in a shadow between two tree trunks, and watched as she reached over to touch his knee while laughing at something he said. He leaned into her like it was normal, like this was just another night for them. My hands were shaking. I pulled out my phone and started recording. It wasn't just instinct, it was survival. I needed to remember this moment. Not because I wanted to show it to anyone, but because I knew I'd try to forget. That some part of me would rewrite it later as a dream, a misunderstanding. But the camera doesn't lie. And then it got worse. He stood up to pour more wine. She followed him to the kitchen, lightly resting her hand on his back as she walked. When they returned, he sat again. She didn't. She lingered by the edge of the couch, hesitated, then leaned down and kissed him. Not a fast kiss. Not a rushed one. Not the kind of awkward kiss that might be explained away. A real one. Slow. Familiar. Like it had happened before. like it would happen again. I pressed stop on my phone. That was it. Not suspicion. Not theory. Not some half-truth I could argue about later. It was real. Physical. Visual. Time-stamped. Geographically locked. A full account. She was at her boss's house. On a night she told me it was a team event. No one else was there. The receipt I saw at Cliffview weeks ago had resurfaced. I spotted the same paper peeking from her purse sitting on the table. The corner folded in the same way. They kissed again before disappearing into a room down the hallway. I stood there, frozen. I don't know how long I stayed. Long enough for the hallway light to switch off. Long enough for me to hear the door click shut. Long enough for me to take a second video. A still frame of the empty wine glasses. Her purse. The suit jacket. The unmistakable implication of int asterisk Macy. Then I turned and left. My feet felt like concrete walking back to my car. Every step was heavy. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I wasn't crying either. I just felt detached. Like I was watching someone else's life break apart in front of me. Some other guy's heartbreak. Not mine. But it was mine. I drove home in silence. No music. No traffic. Just the low hum of tires on pavement and the replay of what I'd seen looping in my head. When I got home, I plugged my phone into the computer and saved everything. Video files, photos, location metadata, timestamps. I created a private, encrypted folder and duplicated the whole thing to 2 flash drives I'd bought months ago for tax season. Labeled one Q1 receipts and the other miscellaneous. Then I hid them. One in my desk drawer. The other in the toolbox in the garage. She wouldn't look there. Not yet. Later that night, I got a text from her. Staying here. Too much wine. Don't want to risk driving. Love you, yellow heart. It almost made me laugh. The gall of it. The casual cruelty. Like I hadn't just seen the truth with my own eyes. I didn't reply. Didn't type a word. I lay in bed that night with a knot in my chest, staring at the ceiling, my phone face down on the dresser, and I realized something awful. All the doubts I'd dismissed, all the lies I let slide, all the instincts I drowned in logic and empathy and second chances. They were never wrong. They were just waiting. The morning after I saw Rachel kiss him, I didn't speak a word. I got up earlier than usual, before the sun crept in through the blinds, before her usual good morning texts could hit my phone and try to wrap me back into the lie. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at nothing in particular while the bitterness of what I'd witnessed settled into my bones like cold air. And that was the moment I knew. This wasn't going to end in fire. It was going to end in precision. No yelling, no tears, no how could you confrontation in the middle of our living room. I wouldn't give her that performance. Wouldn't give her the satisfaction of being the one to fall apart. She could keep her tidy stories and calendar invites and late-night excuses. I didn't need to disprove a single one of them anymore. I had everything I needed. I started with the essentials. I pulled out my lockbox, the one she always teased me about for being too prepper. It held our passports, my birth certificate, the title to my car. Everything I'd usually only dig out once every few years. I took photos of each document and uploaded them to a fresh cloud drive I created under an alias I'd never used before. Then I backed those up to an encrypted folder on a spare USB. Labeled that one car maintenance. While I worked, I deleted nothing. No search history. No signs of what I was doing. I wanted it to be clean, but I didn't want it to look erased. I didn't want her thinking I was angry. I wanted her thinking I was fine. In the kitchen, I brewed a second pot of coffee. Just habit. My hands were working, but my mind was somewhere else, already making checklists, organizing timelines. When you're betrayed like that, the pain doesn't always hit like a wrecking ball. Sometimes it comes in whispers, like standing on the edge of a cliff, realizing the ground has already crumbled beneath you, and you've been hovering midair without knowing. I opened the shared bank accounts on my laptop. First, I stopped the automatic payments linked to our joint card, utilities, groceries, internet. I rerouted my subscriptions, split the bills, and created new credentials. Then, I set up a second savings account under my name only. No joint access. I transferred my half of the savings, every dollar I'd put in. Not a cent more. I left her share untouched. It wasn't about revenge. It was about fairness, accuracy, clean lines. Next, I checked the lease on our apartment. We were 2 months from renewal. That gave me a window. I submitted a 60-day notice to the landlord and requested to be removed from the contract. I told them Rachel would be staying, that she'd handle the paperwork moving forward. I didn't tell her that, of course. Not yet. I printed out the confirmation and slipped it into the taxes folder we both kept in the hallway cabinet. That way, if she went looking, she'd find it herself. I also backed up the evidence. Every photo, every receipt, every video I'd taken from that night at her boss's house. I archived them on 2 separate drives. No labels. No folders screaming infidelity. Just cold, neat storage. I encrypted both drives, then placed one at my office locker and mailed the other to my brother across the state. He wouldn't ask questions. Not until I asked him to. At noon, I packed a single bag. 1 carry-on. Just clothes, essentials, chargers, documents. Everything else I left behind. Furniture, dishes, decor. All the shared stuff. All the things we'd picked out together at those weekend Target runs or that overpriced boutique she loved in Santa Monica. I didn't want any of it. I wasn't leaving my life. I was just walking away from a version of it that no longer existed. She texted around 12:30. Hey, survived the party. Waking up slow. You at work yet? I didn't reply. 15 minutes later. Babe. Still nothing. The silence felt like power. Not in a vengeful way. In a final way. Like I was already fading out of her story. Becoming a character she couldn't quite pin down anymore. Let her guess. By 1 o'clock, I was out of the apartment. I didn't slam doors. Didn't leave a note. I didn't even take my name off the mailbox yet. I wanted her to come home and feel everything exactly the same for just long enough to be confused. I wanted her to have to look closely, to notice the tiny absences. My toothbrush gone. My drawer empty. My running shoes missing from the mat by the door. I booked a hotel for the weekend. Nothing fancy. Just clean, quiet, anonymous. A place with late checkouts and blackout curtains. I needed space to think, to plan, to recalibrate. I turned off my location sharing. Deleted our shared calendar. Logged out of our Spotify duo. Removed my name from Amazon Prime. All the quiet little threads that connect lives together. I cut them one by one. That night, I told only 2 people. My dad first. We'd never been overly emotional with each other. But when I told him I left Rachel, he didn't ask why. He just said, "Come home if you need to. You've got a room here." No judgment. No pity. Just a landing pad. Then I called my sister. She asked if I was okay. I said, "Not yet. But I will be." And she believed me. By Saturday, the texts from Rachel had multiplied. "Hey, are you okay? Call me when you get this? I'm getting kind of worried. Can you just tell me what's going on?" I didn't answer. She called Sunday afternoon. 3 times in a row. I watched the phone buzz on the hotel nightstand and didn't move. Then came the voicemails. Her voice, soft, confused, careful. "Hey, I don't know what happened. If I did something, please just talk to me. We can work through it. I'm sorry if I was distant. I love you. Please come home." That please nearly broke me. But it was too late for that. I already had the proof. And I already knew what she'd chosen when she thought I wasn't looking. By Monday, I'd filed the change of address forms. My mail would go to a P.O. box now. I set up a new phone plan. Changed my email passwords. Blocked her on social. She still hadn't admitted anything. Hadn't confessed or begged or sent some long emotional letter like people do in the movies. She probably thought she could explain her way out of it. That it was some misunderstanding. That I'd believe the "we just talked, I swear" version of the story. But I didn't need her story anymore. I had the truth. And I had my exit. I didn't ghost her to be cruel. I left because anything else, any word, any hint of weakness would pull me back in. I know myself. I would have stayed if she cried. If she said it was just a mistake. if she said it meant nothing. I've seen men get buried under "it meant nothing." So I left before she could ni's regret. Some people think closure has to come with a confrontation, a final argument, a slammed door or a broken plate or a shouted "why" in a kitchen at midnight. But that's not real closure. That's theater. Real closure is evidence, action, silence. She made her choice. I made mine. And when she came home that night to a quiet apartment, nothing broken, nothing dramatic, just a hollow where I used to be, I hope she understood. This wasn't a breakup. It was an audit. And the numbers didn't lie. I used to think the world didn't notice people like Rachel, that someone could lie, cheat, manipulate, and still walk away smiling, untouched. Like life would just keep rewarding the bold and selfish. I think a lot of people feel that way after being betrayed. You sit there in the wreckage, wondering why you're the one bleeding while they keep posting brunch photos like nothing happened. But the truth is, sometimes the fallout just takes a little time. For the first couple of weeks after I left, I didn't hear anything concrete. I got the occasional message from a mutual friend, usually vague, polite check-ins masked as curiosity. "Hey, everything okay with you and Ratch?" Or, "Just saw her at so-and-so's birthday. Weird not seeing you there." I never replied. I figured Rachel was spinning some story behind the scenes, probably saying we were taking space, that I had burned out, maybe even framing herself as the one holding things together. She'd always had a way of packaging herself for sympathy, like a PR team of one. But then, slowly, the cracks started to show. The first real hint came from Kim, the coworker Rachel always claimed she was crashing with after late nights. Kim and I had never been especially close, but she was decent, normal. She reached out to me via email of all things, said she wasn't looking to pry, but that she felt complicit in something she didn't fully understand. She told me Rachel had used her name as cover more than once, claimed she was staying at Kim's place after work dinners, when Kim hadn't even seen her, said she'd confronted Rachel after overhearing part of a phone call Rachel had taken in the office, something about hiding the receipt and deleting location history. I didn't respond to Kim directly, but I appreciated her honesty. Quiet truths have a way of balancing loud lies. The next hit came from Rachel's workplace. I found out, again through quiet channels, that rumors had started circulating about her relationship with Alex. Apparently, someone had spotted the two of them out in **na again, just weeks after the team event Rachel had lied about. And not in some hidden hotel lounge or private dinner spot, but out in the open, walking arm in arm through a boutique plaza like they were just another couple on a casual Saturday. And in that kind of office, word spreads fast, especially when your romantic involvement is with your direct superior. I never said a word to anyone in her office. I didn't send the footage. I didn't mail *TS or receipts or anonymous tips. But people aren't stupid, especially HR. Especially when patterns start to emerge, shifted meeting schedules, selective team invites, travel justifications that don't align. Alex resigned within the month. The email went out on a Monday. Personal reasons. Grateful for the opportunity. Time to prioritize family and health. The usual script. Rachel didn't lose her job, not immediately. But the promotions she'd been eyeing? Gone. The bonus she bragged about last quarter? Frozen pending contractual review. She was reassigned to a less visible role. No more travel. No more big clients. No more company card. They didn't fire her. They just slowly cut off the air supply. And without that pipeline of perks and commissions, her lifestyle started to buckle. Her Instagram stayed curated for a while. Sunset selfies, latte art, motivational quotes about healing and growth. But if you looked closer, the seams were there. The Range Rover disappeared from the driveway first. Probably a lease she couldn't keep up. Then the post stopped featuring her downtown apartment, the one with the big windows and rooftop access. She moved into a basic rental off the freeway, beige carpet, no washer-dryer in unit. I recognized the complex. I almost signed a lease there when I first moved to the city. It was the kind of place where people live when they're between things. Between jobs, between versions of themselves. Her wardrobe changed, too. The designer handbags she used to flaunt vanished. I saw one pop up in a consignment store online. I recognized the initials engraved inside. The shoes followed. The hair appointments stopped. The new clothes became thrift store hauls and eco-conscious budgeting tips. She tried to spin it all as intentional minimalism. But I'd seen her when she had money, when she had momentum. That version of Rachel didn't post about capsule wardrobes. That version bought 2 of the same dress just to have options. I learned later, through a friend of a friend, that her credit card slipped into default. She'd maxed it out trying to maintain the image. And when the freeze came down at work, when the boss was gone and the raises evaporated, she had no cushion. That was the thing about Rachel. She built her whole world on optics, presentation. She could style any failure into a lesson, any mistake into a pivot. But real consequences, real silence from the people who used to orbit her. That's what unraveled her. Because it turns out, when the spotlight fades, so do the people who only liked you in the light. And the man she'd risked everything for? Gone. I don't know the exact moment Alex disappeared from her life, but it happened fast. Maybe he left town. Maybe the scandal got too close. Maybe she meant less to him than he ever did to her. But he vanished from her socials, her check-ins, her calendar. Her boss. Her friend. The same guy she risked our home for couldn't even bother sticking around for the fallout. I won't lie and say I didn't check in on her life during those months. I did. Not obsessively. Not in a bitter, stalker kind of way. But I was curious. There's a strange comfort in watching someone lose the things they took for granted, especially when they threw away what you gave them like it meant nothing. I wasn't rooting for her downfall. I just wasn't protecting her from it anymore. Because the truth is, when you walk out clean, when you don't scream or throw plates or drag names through the mud, people pay attention. They wonder why. They look closer. And Rachel had built too much on the assumption that no one ever would. I never needed to take her down. She did that all by herself. The last I heard, she started freelancing, trying to launch some vague consulting business. She pitched herself as a branding strategist, whatever that means. The site looked okay. Too many buzzwords. Testimonials from people with no last names. The kind of hustle that runs on optimism and overdrafts. Maybe she's still out there spinning stories, telling people about the guy who ghosted her out of nowhere. Maybe she cries on first dates and says she's still healing from being abandoned. Maybe she's rewritten the whole thing in her head. But I don't care, because her chapter in my life is over. And while she was pawning handbags and drafting captions about rebuilding, I was doing something she never expected. I was moving on. I moved to Denver, got a job at a local garage. Small place, honest work. No pretense, no layers. I rebuilt my days from scratch. Coffee at sunrise, grease under my nails, silence I could trust. Then I met Hannah. Kind, grounded, real. We married at City Hall. No guests, no promises we couldn't keep. Just one. No secrets. Truth always. No more pretending. No more shadows. Years later, at a work charity event, I saw her. Rachel. Alone by the drinks table, thinner, older, her spark gone. She looked at me, then at Hannah by my side. Her lips parted like she had something to say, but didn't. I nodded once, polite. She faded back into the room. No anger. No need for words. Just the quiet weight of choices catching up. I turned away, steady. That was the real ending. Not with rage, but indifference. Peace.